Okay, now moving on to these type of examples. So notice this equation from engineering science, equations of motion. Here we got S is equal to V times T plus half A times T squared. And we need to make T the subject of the formula. So an example where you have the distance, you have your velocity, you have your acceleration, you need to find time. How do you do that? Okay, so notice that you cannot take out T as a common factor. Because if you take out T, what will happen is you'll still be left with T here. If you take out T here, you're going to be left with V plus half A T. The problem is you still have T inside the brackets. So taking out a common factor does not work. But what do you notice now? You're looking for T. You have T to the power 1. And then you have T squared. T appears twice, but the powers are different. The highest power there is a square. So therefore, this is in the form of a quadratic. Okay, so what do? You make the whole equation equal to 0. So if I take S to the right hand side, so I'm going to have 0 if I take S to the right hand side, then now I got half A T squared plus V T minus S. So I make my whole equation equal to 0, and this is in the form of a quadratic now. Okay, so remember your quadratic standard form is ax squared plus bx plus c equals to 0. It's just that t is being replaced, so x is being replaced by t there in this equation. So if I want to use the quadratic formula here, okay, the quadratic formula, x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all divided by 2a. Okay, so now let's identify our a, b, and c. So remember, when we are using the quadratic formula, a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is your constant. There is no x multiplied by it, or in other words, it's x to the power 0. Right, so here a is the coefficient of x squared. So here we are looking for the coefficient of t squared. Okay, not x squared. Here we're looking for the coefficient of x. Here it's the coefficient of t. So now our ABC, our A, B, C. Let's write them down. So let's start with C. C is the constant. Okay, so your constant here is, let me just write that down. Your constant is minus S. B is the coefficient of x. In other words, b is the coefficient of t there, which is just v. And then a is the coefficient of x squared. So here your a is the coefficient of t squared. So everything multiplied by t squared. So that will be half a. Now substitute into the formula. So x is equal to, but in this case it's going to be t is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all divided by 2a. So let's substitute. My a is, my b minus b, my b is v, so that's b squared, so that's v squared, a, which is half a, and c is minus s, all divided by 2a. My a is half a there. Okay, so now let's simplify it, and it will be minus v plus or minus the square root of, so this is going to be v squared. So notice here I got a negative times, this is positive, times a negative. So negative times negative will be a positive. 4 divide by 2, that will be 2, so that will be plus 2as there. Okay, all divided by 2 times 1 over 2, 2 and 2 cancel, you just end up with a. So is there anything more that we can do there? No. So t is the subject of the formula. And we use the quadratic formula there. Alright, so be careful. This is in the form of a quadratic. You cannot take out t as a common factor. The same applies for example C. Example C, we need to make g the subject. Check. There's a g squared and there's also a g to the power 1. Just like there's an x squared and there's an x to the power 1 in a quadratic. It's decreasing. Okay. So you know, we don't want to deal with fractions, get rid of the fraction. So here, I got s is equal to 4u squared plus g squared times t squared divided by 8g. So I don't want the fraction, I'm going to multiply by 8g over 1 on the right. So it will be 8g over 1 on the left hand side. So therefore, we now have 8gs is equal to 4u squared plus g squared t squared. Alright, so now you know, with your quadratic, always make your equation equal to 0. Ax squared is just that it's not x, it's now g. So therefore I got 0, then I got g squared t squared minus 8gs plus 4u squared. Okay, so now notice 8gs came to the right hand side. It was positive, now it became negative. Notice that I wrote it as the middle term, not the last term, because it must be in order. It must be ax. If there's an x squared, there must be an x. Just like if there's an t squared, there must be t to the power 1. So you got g squared, you must have g to the power 1 as your middle term. The last one does not have g, it's your constant. So from here, all you do is identify your a, b, and c. So clearly for this example here, my a is the what are we working out? We want working out g. So what the coefficient of g squared is a. So a is going to be t squared. What is b? B is going to be the coefficient of g. So the coefficient of g, remember there you got minus 8sg. Okay, it's not written in order, but you should understand the coefficient means everything that's multiplied by g. So it's going to be minus 8s there, and then c is your constant, which is 4u squared. So now once you got your a, b, and c, you're certain, then you write down the quadratic formula. Sorry, not x. We are working out g. So g is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all divided by 2a. So let's substitute. So that's minus b, which is minus 8s. So that's minus 8s. That's a times c. What is my a, which is t squared, and c, which is 4u squared, all divided by 2a, which is t squared. Alright, so now let's simplify this here further. Negative times negative, that's going to be a positive 8s, plus or minus the square root of, I've got a negative squared, which will be positive 8 squared, that will be 64s squared, Negative times a positive, that will be minus 4 times 4 is 16t squared u squared, all divided by all divided by 2t squared. Okay, now in the exam this is fine because you made g the subject of the formula. Okay, but however, you can go and simplify this further. You can, obviously, you can see, you can take out a common factor here, and then you can simplify. Let me just show you how to get to that textbook final answer there. Okay, so if I want to simplify further, let's see. So this here is fine for the exam. Okay, but in the textbook, the final answer is simplified as far as possible. So let's see how we're going to do that with this one here. So therefore, if I have g is equal to 8s plus or minus the square root of, so I can take out a common factor there of 16. Okay, so if I take out 16, I'm left with 4s squared, because 16 times 4 will give you 64, minus t squared u squared, all divided by 2t squared. Okay, so now I got my g is equal to 8s plus or minus. Now I can go and find the square root of 16, since now this is multiplication. Now it's 16 times everything, so it will be the square root of 4s squared minus t squared u squared, all divided by 2t squared. So now let's see what can happen here. Right, so therefore we can have 8s plus or minus the square root of 16 is 4 times the square root of 4s squared minus t squared u squared, all divided by 2t squared. Okay, so now let me just write it on the top here since I don't have space. Okay, so simplifying further, what do you notice here? I got 4 and I got 8, so I can pull out a common factor since there are two terms here. So I can pull out a common factor of, so remember this is g is equal to, I can pull out a common factor of 4, so I'm left with 2s, because 4 times 2s will be 8s, plus or minus the square root of 4s squared minus t squared u squared, all divided by 2t squared. Okay, so now this I can divide here. 4 divided by 2, that's going to be 2 into 2s plus or minus the square root of 4s squared minus t squared u squared, all divided by t squared. If you want to now, okay, you can obviously multiply 2 times 2 will give you the 4, 2 times, you can have the 2 there, but the trick here basically was to understand that you could pull out 16 as a common factor, and from your section on irrational equations and exponents, you know you can split it up because it's multiplication here. Square root of 16 times the square root of everything there. Unnecessary for the exam. In the exam, this is your final answer once you make G the subject of the formula. So you can see with this section here, okay, this is using the quadratic formula. There are still examples where you need to use exponents and logs also.